executives over the years who I observed dismissing or diminishing or not giving the woman in the room the same credit, really for no other reason than she was a woman. And so it's a very real thing. And it's not every man, I have to say this, but there is a certain particular type of person who, for some reason, in my experience, would see a woman in the workplace or in the high sort of upper echelons of the professional environment as being less than them just because of her gender. So when I hear, what you're saying about women are predominantly coming to you talking about these issues of gaslighting, it does kind of track with what I've seen.
I'll tell you this, I've never had a man come to me in all this time that I've been, from my book to my content, this number of years, ever say, I think I'm being gaslit. It has always been the woman.
Never. What about the conversation around dealing with narcissists? Because this feels like it's kind of one in the same. The words are used in the same sort of vernacular, but
yeah.
Do you have men coming to you saying that I think my partner's a narcissist?
Yes.
You do?
Yeah, that I do have. Yeah, it's always they're married to one or just got out of a relationship with one, but it's never them.
And what do you say to someone who is dealing with a narcissist, who is dealing with someone who repeatedly gaslights them? Let's say it's in the context of work.
Yeah.
What are they meant to do? Quit their job?
Well, that is an option, so let's not rule that out.
Okay.
If it's worth it to you, because that's the question of what's your purpose here, and this is where you're going to be forever. Then there's some things we need to put in place. But what are you to do? You are to limit the interaction, limit the exposure, talk less, neutral statements. So if you can, many ways you can, just limit the amount of physicality of, I don't have to see you, I don't have to communicate with you. I know you work 3 doors down, but I don't have to be your best friend, and you certainly don't have to be mine. 2 is understanding the game that you're in. It's a game for narcissists of praise or provoke, meaning if I am not showering you with praise, then the narcissist will turn to provoke in order to create an argument for the same effect. They delight in frustration just as much as they delight in your praise, because they get the same type of control. I've seen so many expert witnesses in my field that are what I would term are narcissists. They can never possibly be wrong. They don't do empathy. And again, this is me with the understanding of, hey, we all have narcissistic tendencies. We all have narcissistic traits. And narcissism is a diagnosable condition that you can have. I think more people would qualify more than they think. But how do you handle it day to day is knowing what kind of game you're in. And that's a game you're just not going to play. I know I don't have to say anything to that person. 2, I'm going to limit my distance to them. And 3, I'm going to use neutral statements. I'm going to use neutral statements like, that's good to know. Thanks for sharing. Noted. Like things that they can't grab onto and continue to have in a conversation.
When you think of the hallmarks of a really, really one of these types of people, what are the characteristics that I should be looking out for if I'm dealing with one such person who is going to try and manipulate me, is going to try and gaslight me? What do they do?
They can never be happy for anybody but themselves. They can't be happy for you. They can't be happy for other people. These are the types that if you were to say, hey, did you see that Stephen just got this award? Isn't that so great? He's just nominated for whatever. And they go, I guess that's fine. When I did this, and they start talking about themselves. They can never be happy for somebody else. They can't be happy for you.
That's actually pretty cool.
They have to find some way to turn the conversation of why the world is so hard and so pitiful for them that the world was against them and they couldn't get it, but they were just as deserving. I guess that's fine. I do this, but nobody listens. Nobody really cares. They find that they have a very victim mentality. So 2 is a victim mentality. Everything happens to them in some way. And 3, they can't feel for other people. They don't do emotion. It's always about the perception of what others would think. They're very, very sensitive to how others might portray them. So they're going to give you a different view than they give other people. And so the couple might be terrible, but for a narcissist, they're going to put on face that the relationship is perfect to everybody else. And everybody goes, you must be so blessed to be married to that person. And you're going, you kidding me? they're fooling everybody, and it's a very helpless position.
Have you ever had a narcissist try and prey on you?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in the legal field, man. Expert witnesses have opinions to them that are unquestionable. You can't, this is their opinion and nobody else could ever argue with it. When I have another expert who says just the opposite. So a lot of the times they are very condescending. You know, that's fine. And they have their opinion and this is all there is. And how dumb of you to ever question me. And usually what gives it away is if I feel like this is somebody that, okay, they can't be reasonable. They're never going to give an inch on what's reasonable. I will ask this. I'll say, this is typically in a deposition. I'll say, and you think the jury's going to like that? Or you think other people are going to agree with you? And all of a sudden they kind of change in an instant to be able to match what the jury is going to think. So if I were to say, and you think that's okay, and you think others are going to find that okay, and you think that the jury, when they
Oh
hear
my
this,
god,
they're
that's so
all
fucking
going to
smart.
agree with this very hard line opinion.
Wait, I want to repeat that shit. I want to repeat the whole fucking podcast.
Limit the exposure. Talk less. Neutral statements. So if you can, many ways you can, just limit the amount of physicality of, I don't have to see you, I don't have to communicate with you. I know you work 3 doors down, but I don't have to be your best friend, and you certainly don't have to be mine. 2 is understanding the game that you're in. It's a game for narcissists of praise or provoke, meaning if I am not showering you with praise, then the narcissist will turn to provoke in order to create an argument for the same effect. They delight in frustration just as much as they delight in your praise, because they get the same type of control. I've seen so many expert witnesses in my field that are what I would term are narcissists. They can never possibly be wrong. They don't do empathy. And again, this is me with the understanding of, hey, we all have narcissistic tendencies. You know, we all have narcissistic traits. And narcissism is a diagnosable condition that you can have. I think more people would qualify more than they think. But how do you handle it day to day is knowing what kind of game you're in. And it's a game you're just not going to play. I know I don't have to say anything to that person. 2, I'm going to limit my distance to them. And 3, I'm going to use neutral statements. I'm going to use neutral statements like, that's good to know. Thanks for sharing. Noted. Like things that they can't grab onto and continue to have in a conversation.
When you think of like the hallmarks of a really, really one of these types of people, what are the characteristics that should be looking out for if I'm dealing with one such person who is going to try and manipulate me, is going to try and gaslight me? What do they do?
They can never be happy for anybody but themselves. They can't be happy for you. They can't be happy for other people. These are the types that if you were to say, hey, did you see that Stephen just got this award? Isn't that so great? She's nominated for whatever. And they go, I mean, I guess that's fine. You know, when I did this, and they start talking about themselves. They can never be happy for somebody else. They can't be happy for you. They have to find some way to turn the conversation of why the world is so hard and so pitiful for them that the world was against them and they couldn't get it, but they were just as deserving. I mean, I guess that's fine. I mean, you know, I do this, but nobody listens. Nobody really cares. They find that they have a very victim mentality. So 2 is a victim mentality. Everything happens to them in some way. And 3, they can't feel for other people. They don't do emotion. It's always about the perception of what others would think. They're very, very sensitive to how others might portray them. So they're going to give you a different view than they give other people.
Okay.
And so the couple might be terrible, but for a narcissist, they're going to put on face that the relationship is perfect to everybody else. And everybody goes, you must be so blessed to be married to that person. And you're going, you kidding me? They're fooling everybody. And it's a very helpless position.
Have you ever had a narcissist try and prey on you?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in the legal field, man. Expert witnesses have opinions to them that are unquestionable. This is their opinion and nobody else could ever argue with it. When I have another expert who says just the opposite. So a lot of the times they are very condescending. You know, that's fine. And they have their opinion and this is all there is. And how dumb of you to ever question me. And usually what gives it away is if I feel like this is somebody that, okay, they can't be reasonable. They're never going to give an inch on what's reasonable. I will ask this. I'll say, this is typically in a deposition. I'll say, and you think the jury's going to like that? Or you think other people are going to agree with you? And all of a sudden they kind of change in an instant to be able to match what the jury is going to think. So if I were to say, and you think that's okay, and you think others are going to find that okay, and you think that the jury, when they hear this, they're all going to agree with this very hard line opinion. I've seen it every time where it's only when I reference other people, the presentation of themselves to other people, that they kind of put on a show.
Why?
Because they know that the perception of the crowd is everything. They need everybody to like them, to fawn over them. They want their idea to be the best. And so they will manipulate the situation to be the chameleon, to make sure that everybody loves them, at least in their mind. It's not a reasonable thought. So they will typically change their opinion to sound more palatable, even though they could have admitted to that, 2 hours into the deposition.
Do they tend to talk more or less than the average person in the room?
Much more.
Is there a thin line between just being insecure and being a narcissist? Because one of the things I was thinking about is you said earlier that they tend to bring everything back to themselves. And I was thinking about all the people that I know that if we were having a conversation about your book doing really, really well, the first response to that would be their mention of their own book. Like they would immediately bring it straight back to something about them. And I was wondering, some of those people I just have in the category of just being a little bit insecure and that they just, they're a search for validation. So I'm wondering where you think the line might be between sort of narcissistic behavior and just like extremely insecure. Maybe there's not a line. Maybe extreme insecurity is narcissism.
Both can be true. I'd say that not all insecure people are narcissists, but all narcissists are insecure. I would say that if I had to give some kind of line, it would be the interest for growth. Insecure people are looking for ways to grow and to secure and attach. Narcissists, they're not looking for anybody to attach onto. They're looking for people to support them, to please them. And so they have no interest in growth. To them, they've learned all they have to learn. I am the best. I cannot improve anymore. That to me would be the difference.
When you dealt with narcissists in your own life and in the courtroom, what is the reason why they couldn't prey on you? What did you do as defense to stop their typical games working on you?
I don't chase their words. Often one of the biggest things I see wrong in conversation is a narcissist will, same for a gaslighter, they'll dig a hole, all right? And then they expect you to fill it. Meaning they're going to say something to frustrate you. And you go, no, that's not what happened. Don't you remember? And you start chasing it. And then they just dig another hole. And then you keep going and you keep going. And you're exhausted because all you've been doing is trying to plug holes. You're not having a real conversation. And when I can give it a very clear definition, a very clear signal of noted, I'm just going to stay right there. I'm going to put down the shovel and stay right there with them. And maybe I'll say something as neutral as, got it. I don't have to chase it. I don't have to say anything. And to me, the people that have those narcissistic traits, once they realize that they can have no game with you, that you're not going to play, they find somebody else. If you've ever had somebody come to you and they're the more emotionally toxic type of person, they always have some kind of problem. They come with you and they have this problem. You go, I can't. Right at this moment, I will. And 10 minutes later, what's happened? They don't have that issue. They've already gone to talk to somebody else.
I was watching Dame Dash on The Breakfast Club. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's really,
I know The Breakfast Club.
But it's Dame Dash is on there because he filed for bankruptcy and Charlemagne is sat there.
Mm-hmm.
And Charlemagne is, I've actually interviewed both of them, both Dame and Charlemagne. And Charlemagne is very relaxed and every once in a while just tells Dame Dash that he thinks he's broke. And then Dame Dash is like very like hot-headed and like trying to prove prove all the reasons why he's not broke and like really like, gassing himself. And it's an interesting video to watch. I think it's the more recent one that came out within the last year because it does show, in my view, how to deal with someone who has a significant ego.
Yeah.
Which is Charlemagne just never changes state. Like no matter what the volume is, no matter how much emotion, no matter when he starts calling him some quite personal insults, Charlemagne's demeanor, his tone, his posture, doesn't change.
Unbothered.
And it's super triggering that you just can't get to this guy. Like
right.
It looks like Dame is like really annoyed that he tries to say more offensive things. He calls you're this, you're that, the other. And it's funny because I was watching it this morning. And for me, it kind of tracks with a lot of the stuff you're saying about like just not going with them.
Yeah.
Just not following them because they want you to go somewhere. And there's a certain conflict they want to get in with you. Yeah. And if you just kind of refuse and just stay anchored to whatever your point of view is, it's funny to watch.
They want to push you.
Yeah.
My dad, I can remember growing up, I'd be in the passenger seat, he's driving. And you ever had it where you're in the passenger seat and somebody's just rearing a bumper right on them?
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be looking in the side mirror and I'm like, I kind of start stressing out for him. Dad, somebody's really riding the bumper, right behind him. And I mean, just like clockwork, what he would do, we have shoulders on the roads there in Texas. And rather than trying to speed up or get mad, he would just kind of pull over to the shoulder. And he would say this every time. He'd say, go on with your bad self. Every time he'd go on with your bad self in the rearview mirror. Like, that's how unbothered he was by that. I feel like so many people get road rage. And so many people talk out loud to the cars while they're driving. And it just never got him worked up. and realizing my value and my worth of knowing who I am is not at all determined by where you feel I should go. It goes back to that idea of, if you want to tell me the sky's purple, knock yourself out. You know, I don't have to be right, and you don't have the ability to push me. I can move, and you have your own. I know my lane. I know my speed. I don't have to match anybody else's. So when somebody is unbothered, it's not because they don't care. It's not for lack of care. It's an understanding. It's discernment of knowing, I know who I am in this moment, and why in the world would I try to be anybody else?
Wouldn't life be amazing if we could all be untriggerable?
It'd be more peaceable, that's for sure.
It's interesting because, again, just reflecting on that interview I watched this morning, when Dame Dash calls Charlemagne something really, really offensive, I noticed that as a viewer, I immediately look at Charlemagne to see his reaction to figure out if what Dame Dash just said was true. And do you see what I'm saying? So
yes.
he turned to him and said, "You're a X."
Right.
And then Charlemagne just kind of laughed. And like, it was like water off a duck's back. So immediately as the viewer, I go, well, that can't be true then, because Charlemagne doesn't seem to care.
Exactly. Well, it's not the lack of a care. It's just the opposite. It's all the more care of knowing who he is. So if I were to tell you right now, I hate your purple shirt. It's the most ugliest purple shirt I've ever seen, Stephen. Like, your shirt is so ugly in that purple. Does it affect you whatsoever?
No, because I'm not wearing a purple shirt for anyone listening on Apple or Spotify.
That's right. That's a good point. Right. But you see how you already know the characteristics of you. You already know what you're wearing. And it's not just your clothes. I'm wearing my confidence. I'm wearing everything that your parents, your loved ones have instilled and put on you. I'm wearing the armor of my faith. I have all these other things that I'm wearing. And if you want to say my shirt's purple, that doesn't affect me at all, because that's not who I am. And so often people get mixed up of arguing about, no, I don't have a purple shirt on. When, why would you ever argue with that? It's that quote by Abraham Lincoln that I love. If never argue.
Ooh. Check. Keep me quitting. This is a mistake. I don't see how. Shit. What if I don't give up my bishop? What if I turn it back a bit?
You with a fool, because an onlooker can never know the difference, right? And so it's knowing, no, I know exactly who I am and what I'm wearing.
And this sort of speaks to the fact that your reaction determines how onlookers will interpret everything that's happening. Like,
Yeah.
you know.
Oh, the worst thing you could do to somebody who insults you is laugh. I mean, what does it do? It, I mean, it infuriates them, right? But when same thing with a bully says something to you that they know is meant to hurt you, and if I were to turn around and say, "Did you say that to embarrass me?" I mean, what are they going to do? They could say yes, they could say no, but either way, you're realizing I'm not going to get any reaction. What you're showing them is, for you to do this, it's just not going to be fun for you. It's going to be zero fun whatsoever for you, and so they'll find that with somebody else. It's always your reaction that's going to determine how the conversation goes forward.
There's a lot of people listening right now that are a long way away from that. Very easily triggered.
Yeah.
Seeking justice, whatever it might be. For those people, is it like a muscle they have to build, or what is the journey to getting to this level of sort of mastery?
It's a discipline. It is in the same way that people invest in so many other things in our life. We invest in our health. We invest in self-help books. We invest in the podcasts that we listen to. It is the same. You have to invest in your communication. We don't get taught in school. We don't, I went to law school. People think I learned this in law school. No. Law school teaches you how to read the law. It doesn't teach you how to read people. You had to me, if you are somebody that is in a position of expertise and to share something, it either came at great personal cost or you're making it up. Like it is something that you have learned, right?
It's true.
And so, I mean, whether it's through skill, knowledge, training, you want to know I know these things because I've lived it. I have been on the bad side. I've been on the good side, and it's never something that's just going to come to you.
We are emotional creatures and we're hormonal creatures.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you think about our emotions, our hormones, our health, our physical, cognitive state as it relates to like walking into the courtroom and being ready? Like how much of it, because if I've had 0 hours sleep and I don't know, hungry and whatever else, and I've had an argument and I'm stressed about something, it's going to be significantly harder to show up and be a great communicator and win the argument against somebody.
Right.
So do you think about these things?
All the time. I mean, the emotions are right there connected to the words.
And how do you prepare to be ready for battle?
It's an emotional awareness of how I'm feeling and also how the other person is. Because if I just respond, if I respond to their emotional reaction, I'll miss it every time. Same thing in relationships. If I respond to the reaction, I'll lose that moment to actually speak to the need. So even in the courtroom for me, if I know that I'm a little sleepy, I know I'm a little hungry, I'm a little grumpy, you know what? I can either try and pretend that I'm not, or I might get up in front of the jury and say, "Good morning, everybody. I have to admit to you, I'm a little grumpy. I didn't eat all that much this morning. Anybody else grumpy?" And everybody starts to kind of nod. And now, hey, we all kind of relate, not to my words, but now to the feeling. And now you trust me more. I trust you more because I'm being more authentic.
And do you think people should do that in their own interpersonal relationships, which is just call out their state?
Absolutely. Because perfection is not relatable. Struggle is. Emotions are.
Oh, I figured out this on my own a few months ago.
And you say, "How are you?" And I go, "Good. Everything's good." When it is not. Am I being authentic or am I being fake? But if I were to say, "Let me tell you, I've had a morning and it's tested me in a way I was not expecting, and my mind is just not here." Does that make you trust me more or trust me less?
Trust you more.
Every time. Mm-hmm. So when you can share your struggles with people, I'm not talking about your deep, most inner desire struggles. I'm saying, let me put it this way. Sierra and I check in with each other every morning. It's my wife. And it's only about 10 minutes after she drops the kids off. And we kind of run through how we're doing. And the number one thing she asks me or tells me, he goes, "You told me a lot about what you're doing. You haven't told me about how you're feeling." And that's the truth of the default, I think, of a lot of men and a lot of people. I'm going to tell you what's going on, what's on my agenda, what I'm doing. I haven't told you a lot about how I'm feeling. And we store all that stuff up because it's still there. But if I can share with you what is my struggle, what's happening, not just the good, but more importantly, the bad, I mean, it's always going to bring that authenticity into the play.
women and men are very different in many ways. And
Yeah.
we're very different in many ways. Men are, I don't know, it feels like men just, and again, I'm stereotyping here, so it's not all men and
Of course.
people are different. But just speaking generally, the stereotype is that men are typically a bit more emotionally composed, or shall I say flat,
Why the
and
fuck
women
am I
have
not paying
more
attention?
emotional fluctuations. One could look at hormone changes throughout the month and talk about why that might be, etc., etc. I've had many scientists here talk to me about hormone fluctuations and how that impacts how someone feels. But what this means in our romantic relationships is sometimes we meet each other on very different wavelengths.
Yeah.
So in my relationship, my partner's probably seen me cry once
Right.
in 7 years, maybe twice, but probably once. I've probably seen her cry 500 times, maybe more.
Yeah.
So it almost feels like, I'm just going to be completely honest because I just think it's helpful. So you can fuck me up online if you want to. But it sometimes feels like we're a different species.
Mm.
Like the way that I interact with my guy friends and the way that the sort of wavelength that my romantic partner, my girlfriend operates on, are very, very different. So it's very easy to like misunderstand. And we spend a lot of time talking about how men need to be more emotional and more, I don't know, men need to change how they are.
Yeah.
Because it's the problem. But what about the other side of that, which is do women also need to think about, do we need to meet in the middle? Is what I'm saying.
There's certainly a space to meet in the middle.
Like, who's right in that? I don't know. Is there a person that's right in this configuration? Am I meant to be way more emotional and be, or is she meant to be way more composed? Because I think that's often how both sides feel. They feel like, why aren't you coming to my wavelength on this issue?
But I think here's what you're missing. She would be much more composed if you would be more emotional. And so a lot of the times, what I find in my own marriage is when I show emotion, the more composed she is.
I mean, if I start screaming and crying, I think my girlfriend's gonna.
I'm not saying screaming. I'm saying show emotion.
What kind of emotion?
Of being in it with her.
And what does that look like?
That means you're going to say things that make her feel it. There's a difference if I just go static. That's what happens to me a lot, truthfully, is let's say we're in an argument about something or something came up and Seer's emotional about it. If I dismiss it, okay, this is so dumb. Really, right now? This is, because arguments never come at the most opportune time. They come at the worst possible time. Yeah, that's all relationships. If I dismiss it, right, does that make her come closer to me or further away from me? And if I'm pushing her further away from me, why would she not be more emotional? Why would she not be further away from me if I dismiss that? For every woman to be more emotional as a man, tears are not necessary. Connection is, being in it is, saying things that make her feel that you're genuinely feeling it. The difference I find with men and what I struggle with is I can say that I'm sad. I have a hard time expressing sad. I can say that I'm really regretful. I have a hard time expressing that. I think that is something that happens a lot with most relationships, and I think that happens a lot with men. Of we were emotional, and we got taught early that you are not to cry. I couldn't even tell you how many times I ever saw my dad cry.
I think this is it. The modeling we had as well is my dad was either angry or completely static. And when I say angry, he was very, very rarely angry.
Right.
But when I saw him engage with my mum on an emotional level,
yes,
it would be him yelling back.
Right.
If he wasn't yelling back, he was completely just like, he was just very calm, static, unemotional. There was no in between.
Yeah. It all comes down to repair. How quickly you get to repair. That means, can I validate the feeling that she has? validation is repair. It's not weakness, it's repair. In my world, relationships don't fall apart because of one big failure. They fall apart because of 100 moments where repair could have happened and it didn't. Or you just chose not to. Or you could have said, I'm sorry, but you withheld it. I could have chose to validate how you're feeling, but I said that's stupid. And it's those, the hundreds of those little bitty moments where all of a sudden, no wonder your world's apart. Because you chose in those little bitty moments not to do repair because you said, this is so stupid, this is so small. Yeah, it is small. All the more reason why you should repair it pretty quickly. And so when you can validate those concerns, even when you say she's being emotional, you're not. When you go into that static mode, when I go into that static mode, it's a choice by me to do something different. Not say the thing I always say, not be dismissive, not find ways to try and convince her that she shouldn't feel this way. But if I validate, if I say things like, I can see how you feel that way. If that's how you interpreted it, you know, I don't blame you for feeling that way. I can see that. That sounds scary. That sounds frustrating. If I can choose that, it's this, like, this isn't the key for me. And trust me, I'm talking to myself here.
Yeah.
All right? Because every guy I feel like can be like, okay, this is right. And if I can make the hard choice in that moment to put aside my frustration, just for a moment, put aside my personal frustration and validate the feeling and say words that speak to her need, the need to feel heard, the need to feel safe, the need to feel like she's not being too much, then all of a sudden it all shrinks. And you know what? My frustration kind of goes away. Why? Because everything's better now. We've had moments of repair. And then if I still am really frustrated, then I can bring it up. Hey, can I bring up something to you that you said that's really bothering me? And then you do.
How, as a man, do you know that you're not setting a bad precedence for the future? And what I mean here is, if I constantly, justify how she's feeling and I seek repair, and then when she's happy, I just let it go. I think sometimes there's a worry as a man that if you just lay down and take everything, then you're just going to get more stuff in the future. Like you're setting a bad precedence for the future of this relationship where sometimes actually, no, I wasn't in the wrong. Or I know I do disagree with this.
Right.
And I think
if you dismiss, no, this guy, this is completely true. Like, teach people how to treat you. Yeah. This guy knows what he's asking. Like, good job, Will Smith. What the fuck am I doing? This is a good square. I can abduct the queen. No, I can't. It's gonna take with the pawn. Damn. Fucked up. Okay. Anyway.
Observed a lot of relationships, especially with some of my guy friends, where because they like never stood up for themselves, they're now like living in a prison.
Right.
They like never stood up for themselves.
Yes.
And so they've kind of lost all of their autonomy and agency and control. And they, even when you're listening to this, there's probably people you can think of in your life where the guy has always opted for an easy life in the short term.
Mm-hmm.
And now over the long term, he has a really hard one.
Yes.
And again, men and women.
Of course.
So this is the balance I'm trying to understand in your view is, when do you pick the fight? And when do you say, no, that's not? Versus just laying down and taking it. This is quite...
Out of my house. Shit. I'll start the whole podcast over again. Okay, I guess I'm gonna lose this game. I don't feel like playing anymore.
What are the 5 most important things for anyone who's striving to be a masterful communicator to get what they want out of life?
The first is authenticity. And presence is the highest form of authenticity.
Okay, so on that point, I'm gonna play this video on the screen that went viral of Miley Cyrus and Naomi Campbell.
Oh, I haven't seen this. That's painful to watch.
Number 2.
Reduce the amount of distraction. 3, stop over-explaining.
Not every game goes
Know
your
how to
way,
deal with
but there
their
are always
sadness.
some
And I'll go
opponents
through
might
all of
expect
these
this
in
first
detail.
move,
But number 5
but it
is
offers
you have
fundament-
to
and
know how to
you
handle the
a stri-
narcissist and
develops the
gaslighter.
knight and attacks the
Let
center.
me show you.
Your
First,
opponent pinned
you
your
need
knight. Limit. You are
For
threatening.
a lot of
They
people,
bring
it
out.
kinda
You're
blows their
preparing
mind.
their knight. You kick the
Jefferson
opposing
Fisher is
bishop with a
back,
pawn,
and the
forcing it away.
board-certified trial lawyer is using his expertise in conflict resolution and communication
to teach couples, friends, employees,
and everyone in between how to master difficult conversations.
Here's the truth. You have to invest in your communication. If I don't say what needs to be said at work, I'll lose that promotion. Same thing in relationships. Most relationships don't fall apart because they fell out of love. They fell out of communication because of 100 moments where repair could have happened and it didn't. Because you said, this is so stupid, this is so small. Like, there's a recent study showing that the biggest predictor of the child's well-being within the parental relationship is not whether they were married or divorced. It was how they dealt with conflict. But people are deathly afraid of the conflict that they're in because they don't know what to say. And so I want to help them feel controlled enough, feel confident in this. And it's knowing things like being right is overrated. Or if I respond first with frustration, I'm going to lose every time. Or if you want to know how to handle the insults, the patronizing, the dismissive, the first thing you have to do is...
That's the mistake I've made multiple times. I see messages all the time in the comment section that some of you didn't realize you didn't subscribe. So if you could do me a favor and double check if you're a subscriber to this channel, that would be tremendously appreciated. It's the simple, it's the free thing that anybody that watches this show frequently can do to help us here, to keep everything going in this show in the trajectory it's on. So please do double check if you subscribed. And thank you so much, because in a strange way, you're part of our history and you're on this journey with us. And I appreciate you for that. So yeah, thank you. Jefferson Fisher, what do you do professionally? How do you sort of characterize your profession?
Well, I'm a trial attorney by trade.
What does that mean?
That means I help clients with legal needs. I'm board certified in personal injury, so when people get hurt, I have trials. So that means there are other attorneys that don't ever go to a courtroom. I go into a courtroom.
And you stand before a judge?
A
And
bailiff,
jury?
yeah.
Oh.
You have a judge, have a jury, have a court reporter, a bailiff, have opposing attorneys. There are people in the room.
And you try and convince those people of your point of view to get a particular outcome.
I advocate my clients' facts in order to get the result that they want.
So why did you think it was important to write a book about conversation, talking, getting what you want from the conversations we have with people we care about?
Because I have seen time and time again that when I
Food, production and fate, and gold from each relic artifact and sculpture. Okay. In addition to the usual culture, receives a great artist. Okay, merchant points. So artist, musician, and merchants. For the slot for great modes. May not build holy site districts. King have prophet or found religion. Okay. Okay. So more culture. Okay. Okay. So culture. Hmm. Like.
I'm training a client is what I call it. I'm preparing them for cross-examination, for deposition. They really don't know how to engage in conflict. And so I can't think of any other profession that is more entrenched in conflict, maybe outside of a boxer or some, UFC something, that deals with actual conflict and sits there and listens to it all than in the legal world and a trial attorney. And so, yeah, it's my job to advocate based on my client's facts to get them the result that they want. The reason why I wrote that book and how that book applies is I took a lot of the lessons that I teach every one of my clients and put them in that book because I'm sitting there preparing them for cross-examination and realizing, oh, wait, they are deathly afraid of the conflict that they're in. Because most of the time, it's the most emotional, stressful, overwhelmed they are ever in their life. They're in a place they've never been. They don't know what it's like. They've only seen it on TV. And so it's my job to kind of take their hand and say, this is how we're gonna do it.
And how does that apply to the average person in their life?
People think that the goal of any argument or any conversation is to win. And same for a trial. They say you want to win a trial. I've seen it so many times where I've gotten the result that they want and I realized they still have the problem. They still wanted the apology. It all would have been resolved. There'd be no case if somebody had just said, I'm sorry. Yeah, and so you find that for the everyday person, it's my job now and passion to be able to help them get into conflict and say, I feel controlled in this. I feel confident in this. Now I know exactly where I'm going in this because I've been there before. And it is not a skill that comes naturally. It is a skill that is learned.
And what do you think is the sort of variance in outcome? How would my life change if I became an absolute master in this? You know, if I started from zero in this regard, and then I became a master in dealing with conflict and dealing with difficult people and dealing with people that gaslight me and dealing with narcissists and all these kinds of things, why would my life be different? And in what domains?
It's quite a lot.
Yeah.
First would be you would be equipped for, outside of necessary expertise, anywhere you wanted to be in life. People feel like communication is zero cost. It costs you something. If I'm not speaking up in that relationship, it costs my own sense of worth. If I don't say what needs to be said at work, well, I might have lost that promotion. Everything, the bill always comes due. If you can think of every time you didn't say the thing as like a receipt at a restaurant, every time it's a bill of what I am not putting into my life because I chose to either say something or not say something at the right time. And when you realize that if I can speak with confidence, well, that's me gaining a little bit more. If I can say things with control, that's me gaining just a little bit more. A second benefit of it is that you realize being right is overrated. If you tell me the sky is purple, knock yourself out, Stephen. It doesn't have to touch anything with me on who I am or any of my opinions. We're opinion-making machines. I feel like that's all on social media. It's to be set up to give your opinion on things that most of the time will rarely ever touch you. And if you can have the peace of mind of knowing, I don't need to agree with you to understand you. If you have an opinion, I don't have to give one back. If you say something, I can choose not to say anything at all. And for a lot of people, that kind of blows their mind of, you mean I don't have to respond? No, you don't have to say anything. If somebody's talking really fast, you can talk really slow. They forget that you have full autonomy in it. And when you realize that it's you who's taking the wheel, you take the wheel of your life.
I forget this one as well.
But what about justice, Jefferson?
Yeah.
Do you know justice? Like, this person has wronged me, they've said something wrong, they tweeted at me something which is incorrect. I need to correct the record. Justice. I think we all have a sort of an innate sense of justice. We want things to be fair and right.
Yes. Justice is an inherent value that is high priority for a lot of people for good reason. You might say, well, they've wronged me. This isn't right. that's all well and good. The question is going to be, how long do you want to carry it? How long do you want to carry that feeling? Because I can either choose to let it go. I can choose to say the thing. It's not at all my position that you should be stepping on eggshells and not say the thing and be a wallflower. No, it's the opposite. I'm saying you say what you need to say in a way that is controlled, in a way that is signaling, I'm saying this because it needs to be said, but not because I have to say it. There's a lot of people who feel like, well, something needs to be said, but maybe you're not the one to say it. Maybe you're the one that doesn't need to be said right now, because if they're not willing to listen, well then what good does it ever do? What I like to say is, for you to learn how to stand up for yourself, you first have to learn who's worth getting out of your chair for. I'm not going to be making big moves for something that is not at all worth my time. So yeah, justice is absolutely worth it. But when you go, I'm the one that has to be carrying this, a lot of the times people do things to you and it's nothing to them, but yet it's everything to you. And now you're walking around for 20 years with a comment that you could have said something way long ago and decided to drop it, but you chose to carry it. And now you're the only one that has the weight of that.
If I'm dealing with someone who's in a position of power, someone who's a senior to me at my company, or even someone who in my social group is a bit more higher up in the sort of social pecking order, and they're continually putting me down or being difficult, or even a partner that I'm romantically involved in, what are the hallmarks of someone who has control over their communication, and what are the hallmarks of someone that doesn't? Like, what is it that makes, because when you speak, it feels very composed and controlled. What are you intentionally doing to achieve that effect?
I'm wanting you to match my rhythm. I'm wanting you to come to my frequency. People get it wrong when they go big time to an 11, big emotional reaction. If I have a big emotional outburst, am I signaling that I'm somebody who's trustworthy, reliable, and confident? Or am I signaling that I am out of my depth, I don't know what I want, and I am not to be believed, right? Because when you have an emotional outburst, everybody thinks you're just being emotional.
Oh, I like this guy a lot.
Writing means sharing. assemble.
It's gonna be an early Empire game.
I shot an arrow in.
Okay.
Bronze is the mirror. A physician without a knowledge of a strong economy begins. When wasteful
Oh shit.
it is not that life it was luxuries like it.
And they don't, all of a sudden, you're not credited for the truth of what you're saying. So sometimes emotions can get in the way of what needs to be said because of how you're delivering it. So when I say, I'm going to talk to you in a way that's going to sound more controlled, I'm slowing down my words. I'm lowering my volume. Why? Because I want to pull you down here. And if I can pull you down here, well, then we can talk about a lot harder things rather than feeling like I have to rush. So if you want to talk to somebody in your relationship or somebody that's kind of higher up on the pecking order, so to speak, when you can show them that change doesn't bother you, when you can show them that you don't have to rush through this situation, people feel that you are giving them a sense of comfort. In other words, in conversation, everybody is looking for an anchor. When you go to a meeting, we listen to the person who's the anchor. They're usually the person who says a lot less, the person who's observing and listening rather than always giving their opinion about what you should be doing. Those are the people you don't listen to. As soon as if you've ever heard somebody say, you know what I think you should do, does that ever make you want to do what they said? No, it's because they've made it their idea. Now they're telling you what to do. If I were to say to you, you can't do that, what's the first thing you think of? Yes, I can. It's the same kind of concept where it's me lowering to be the anchor in the conversation.
And when you're in a case in front of a judge, is there anything else that you're intentionally thinking about with, I don't know, your body language or the eye contact, or any of these other things that you've learned over time are really important to get your message heard?
I'm speaking like I've been there before.
Explain that to me.
Walk into a room like you've been there before, as if everybody else is just visiting. So what I do before every trial is I will go in there before the jury comes in. The judge comes in, everybody comes in. And I say to myself, this is my living room and everybody else is just visiting. And so I will touch the chairs. I will put my hands on the banisters. I will walk around. I will feel that space and feel it in a way of saying, I have been here before. And when I can exude that kind of confidence to every juror that watches, all of a sudden it calms them down. They go, who can I rely on here? Who's more trustworthy? Who's more credible? Because that's what it is. When you're persuading, when you are advocating your case, it's who ultimately it comes down to who is more credible. And so when I can not get emotionally flustered, like I've seen it so many times where a judge rules against me and I act as though that's exactly what I wanted. You know, I'm acting as though, thank you, Judge. And the jury's never going to know really any different. But I've seen on other attorneys where the judge rules against them and they go, or they roll their eyes, or they act frustrated. And what does the juror think? Oh, they must not have wanted me to hear this information. Or this must have been bad for their case. So if you are always reacting to situations in which you have to be emotional with, in a sense that you're not paying attention to who's watching you.
Okay, so on that point.
Yeah.
So when you say rules against you, you mean during the trial, there's something you request.
Exactly.
The judge might say no, and you say,
Yes.
thank you, Judge.
Yeah.
You act as if you're not defeated.
You act as though that's exactly what you expected. Right? It's the whole idea of that's not going to shake me. So a lot of the times you'll see in real court, not TV, the judge will say, counsel, can you approach? And both attorneys come up and they play some kind of noise cancellation to where only the attorneys can hear the judge. And the judge is making a decision at that time that we don't want to let the jury know. Why? Because it's information that might sway the case in some way and not be as objective. And you have to pay attention to how the attorneys are walking away after that meeting's done. If somebody looks defeated, it just signals, oh, this is information that they must not want, or they're objecting. I've seen so many cases where there's one attorney who objects to everything. It's my rule if I really want to have one objection the whole trial, because to the jury, an objection is me keeping evidence out. So if you always object, you're just signaling there's information I don't want you to hear. But if I have the confidence of knowing there's really one objection I know that's going to be material to my case, that way they know I've been there before. This is not something that's going to be making or breaking my case. It's all of credibility. If they don't trust me, they're not going to trust my client or my client's case.
I think also it illuminates to me how much of communication is non-verbal, because in that example, you're just talking about how they're watching your body language and how you've received something.
Right.
And if you were defensive, with all those objections, or if you were defeated in the judge's ruling, that would work against you, even though it's really nothing was said, like nothing significant was said.
Yeah, it's a balance of knowing, am I going to choose to react because of personal ego if I didn't get my way? Or am I having the better mindset of I'm advocating on behalf of my client? Like I've been, let's say you're a witness and you're opposed to me and I'm asking you a question and I think you said something that's contrary to the evidence that I have right here. Rather than me getting messed up saying, are you sure about that, Mr. Bartlett? Let me go, I have this piece of paper here and I get really worked up. Versus me you said something and I put my hand on the paper and I said, you sure? Like all of a sudden it's a moment of, it kind of piques their interest of like what's happening. Oh, this attorney knows. This attorney is somebody who's confident and has this, what I call in the pocket presence. I'm not trying to be too forward. I'm not trying to be too back. I'm just in the pocket like a jazz band. Like everybody's on beat. And so I'm not rushing. I'm not slowing down. I'm just right in the pocket.
In the pocket. Is that what people call aura?
Swagger, maybe some people call it. Yeah, aura. You could have it for anything in any context. I like to say in the pocket because it just reminds me of the right timing is my timing. And that is, I'm going to match
The pants are now.
how I need to be of what's most authentic, what's most genuine to me. If you were to ask me to read something really fast, it wouldn't sound that great because that's not my personality. And so if I know that I am acting and speaking in accordance with the values that I hold, and I'm saying everybody here is just visiting. I've been here before. Y'all don't know where to go? Let me show you. And I have that kind of mentality. People will listen to you forever. They'll find that attractive, saying, how does this person know where they're going? Well, I can follow them. It's natural leadership to speak in a way that says, I know where I'm going. I've been here before.
I think that's probably good advice for people who have important meetings or are going on dates.
Yeah.
To maybe get there ahead of time and familiarize yourself with the location.
Yes.
Just so you don't have the added anxiety of like stumbling through the physical environment, like
Right.
looking for the thing or trying to find the toilet or
Exactly.
I don't know, trying to figure out how to make the PowerPoint presentation airdrop onto the screen and all those kinds of things, which we've all seen before.
Yeah. Anytime I go to speak, I spoke this past week in Santa Barbara. I went ahead of time before my speaking time to go. I want to see what the room looks like. I want to see how can I touch and say hi to the people that are working AV? How can I meet them? If you really want to be better as a professional speaker, talk to people in the crowd before you speak. Get to know people's names. It's going to naturally lower you. Get to know their names. Ask them why they're here. Say, I'm so thankful that you're here. I'm really looking forward to the message and getting to talk to you today. When you can go in and touch people, it's a different sense than if I'm going into a room totally cold because you don't really have the vibe. You don't really know how that is. So yeah, going into a restaurant ahead of time, that's great. Not bringing your phone, even better. Getting able to be a sense of knowing I've been here before. I want to welcome you to my space.
When we talk about people that have aura, you must have met a lot of people in your career and your life generally that you felt had a sense of aura.
Yes.
What was it about them that gave them that aura? What is it?
It's a frequency of peace for me. I think of people, and you think of people in your life who you have felt most comfortable with. The person you feel like, I can just be myself. I can finally let everything down. And for me, it was our grandparents' house. As soon as I walk in, it's a different feeling of time kind of stands still. They want to know about me. They want to know how am I doing. It's that feeling. I could talk about people who seem like they have aura and they just have a glow about them. It's usually they're not trying to prove anything to anybody. They just naturally exude that kind of charisma because of the security of knowing who they are and what they can do.
And I guess what's the opposite of that then? Sometimes it's easier to understand something by understanding the opposite. What would that look like?
I would say that authentic people, authentic aura, as you said, doesn't come from people securing themselves to you. That's for insecure people. The people who are authentic know that I am good exactly where I'm at. Oh, you want to rush? I'm really no rush. What happens today happens today. Is it really due today, or could it be done tomorrow if I had to? If it's a slower pace, I find that there is so much kind of what they call cowboy wisdom on these kind of things where, and I'm from Texas in the South, so it's kind of this knowing that the right time will come when that time is right and not having to push that. So if you want to look at the opposite, it's the opposite of aura is insecure. It's name dropping. It's having to be friends immediately. It's having to prove to you how much money I have or what. It's everything else, being everything to everybody else except myself.
So, fuck my open borders. Fuck your open borders. Fuck this shit. Give me more gold.
Proof it's kind of really no rush. What happens today happens today. Is it really due today, or it could it be done tomorrow if I had to? If it's a slower pace, I find that there is so much kind of what they call cowboy wisdom on these kind of things where, and I'm from Texas in the South, so it's kind of this knowing that the right time will come when that time is right, and not having to push that. So if you want to look at the opposite, it's the opposite of aura is insecure. It's name dropping. It's having to be friends immediately. It's having to prove to you how much money I have, or what. It's everything else, being everything to everybody else except myself. Like people who have a sense of style, their own sense of style, naturally have an aura. Why? Because they don't care what in the world anybody else is wearing. This is what I like. My daughter, all right, she's 6. We tried setting out clothes. Forget it. She can come down in a leopard print tutu and her sunglasses and whatever she wants, and you know what? She thinks she is the flyest thing in the world. I mean, that's it. I never want to take that out of her. The people who have a sense of fashion, the sense of who I am, and they didn't have to look cool to anybody social standard, but it's, do they really care what anybody else thinks? Usually the people with aura do not.
And sometimes when you come up against, I mean, we were talking before we started recording about, since this book's publication, what have been people saying to you, and what are the chapters that have stood out the most to people? And you mentioned that it tends to be things around dealing with difficult conversations,
Yes.
dealing with difficult people.
Right.
And one of the phrases that's been arguably overused a lot in society is this phrase, gaslighting.
Yeah.
And the definition of gaslighting that I managed to pull was, gaslighting is psychological manipulation where one person purposefully lies or manipulates the other to make them doubt their own reality, memory, or sanity.
Mm-hmm.
Do people talk to you about gaslighting a lot
Yes.
now that you've written this book?
Yes.
And what do you think gaslighting is? It's one of those things that's been used so often that we almost have to like pause for a second just to define it again.
Yes. Let me put it this way. The difference between gaslighting and lying. Lying is a surface level of, I could tell you, instead of having a silver cup, this is a red cup. Well, that would be a lie. Gaslighting is, I'm trying to alter your reality into mine. I'm trying to make you question how other people perceive you, including myself, how you perceive yourself. If anybody's ever questioned, am I crazy? Am I the crazy one? Is it me? Is it everybody? Most likely you're probably being gaslit. And here's the truth. I have been the gaslighter. Everybody has been the gaslighter, whether they intentionally know it or not, because it's all that feeling of preservation, of defensiveness, of I don't want people to know the truth of what's happening in my life, so I'm going to mislead. And gaslighting, the intent is to alter your reality, to make you question what is real and what is not.
So I might do something wrong, and then I might come home and know that I've done something wrong and intentionally try and sell my partner a version of reality that makes them fundamentally question what they know to try and spare me the critique or to control them.
Yes, to protect yourself. It's self-preservation. Let's say you and your partner had come home from a dinner, all right, and you're just in a very critical mood, and maybe you're trying to distract from something else that's going on in your life, and you're being critical of a story that she shared, at dinner, and you're like, why would you ever say that? And she goes, everything was fine. You're like, fine, no, it was not. Did you not see how they reacted? No. Listen, I know you don't want to hear this, but everybody feels that, you're a little bit much. And I know I need to tell you this. You see how you're all of a sudden starting to alter how she feels in that moment. And I've seen the other side of that. And it is not at all something that you can come back from without serious relationship work to be able to find a way to say, okay, how are we really walking in truth? Because you get so far away from radical honesty and conversation. So gaslighting is not something to be taken lightly, but I will say people often apply to the wrong thing. They'll use it as a sense of saying, you're saying something I don't like, so you're gaslighting me. We're in an argument and you're pointing out something that hurt your feelings. Oh, that's gaslighting. And they use it as an excuse.
It's almost a form of gaslighting.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And in a weird way, it can reverse that way. But imagine me saying something hurtful to you and you go, that really hurt my feelings. I go, well, that's just my boundary. Let's just have a boundary about everything. Or you're just gaslighting me. I've never met somebody who talked about their ex without saying my narcissistic ex. I finally just got out of a narcissistic relationship. It's never us, right? It's always the other person. And so there's these words that we can kind of pepper and salt in the sentences that are also still another form, if we look at it, a form of self-preservation. Look at all their bad and don't look at mine.
Why is it important that we don't gaslight others? And I ask this question because everybody listening now is probably going to want the answer to the question, which is, what do I do about a gaslighter?
Yeah.
But again, this is avoiding the responsibility that we all have a tendency, or at some point in our life, have gaslighted somebody else.
Yes.
And, I don't think my audience is just the gaslighted.
Yeah, exactly.
Statistically, clearly, you're also all the gaslighters.
Right.
So why is it important that we don't gaslight other people? And is there a way for us to avoid, getting into a situation where our back's against the wall and we end up gaslighting someone?
It's important not to gaslight somebody, because every time you do, you're removing yourself further and further from the truth of how you feel, the truth of your relationship. You are withholding reality from that other person rather than having radical honesty about what's happening. So it degrades the relationship. It degrades another person's self-worth. And in many ways, gaslighting steals their reality. It's not something you can give back without a lot of work. It's taking in some sense. Now, it can be absolutely intentional, and it can also be unintentional as a form of self-preservation. And if you feel like you are being gaslit, the secret to knowing is slowing down the conversation. If I am staying still in the conversation, meaning you could say something to me that's a form of gaslighting, making me question, oh my goodness, did I really say that? Did I really hurt their feelings? No, and get into my head, and I start kind of jumping around and trying to change what I did. But if I were to say, Stephen, I remember that differently, and that's where I stop, then you can try other things, and I'm going to repeat, yeah, I remember that differently. It's standing in the truth of what you know rather than being concerned and misled by giving someone the reins and the leash to drag you around.
And if I think about all the times where I think I might have gaslit someone, in relationships, backs against the wall, and you're having an argument with someone, or it's quite difficult in my head to know the difference between the word like just saying something that isn't necessarily true, or is your perception of things versus like gaslighting. Is the difference in your mind intention? Like, if I give my version of reality, we were at that party, you said this thing, I saw the person roll their eyes and then they walked away, I think they're really offended, I think you offended them.
Right.
What's the difference between that and me gaslighting someone?
Between lying and gaslighting, or it's...
Yeah, like I'm trying to understand in that context you gave about going to a party, someone said something and then they walk off. What's the difference between, if that's how you saw reality and you're communicating it, versus gaslighting someone?
To the intention.
It's the intention.
And the
part.
tension is, I'm the one in control, not you.
Okay.
So you are trying to control the narrative. You are trying to be both director, producer, and actor.
For your own agenda.
That's right. For your own film.
And for control.
I'm the character in my own movie. Hi, I'm the main character. And you need to behave this way. You need to believe this. You need to act upon that. And so the more I can try to manipulate that reality, and what's so wild is it becomes so manipulated that you believe it too. Now that falsehood has now become your fact in some sense. The really good liars convince themselves that lie is the truth.
Is there a certain type of person that's more susceptible to being gaslit or to being victimized in any way with conversation, in your view?
Anxious attachment. The ones that are, people who can't regulate by themselves, they have to co-regulate. Meaning,
I cannot imagine
most of the time, men we're good self-regulators. Just give me some time by myself. Give me an evening. Give me an hour. Let me walk outside. I'll regulate myself. Most of the time, it's been my experience, women are not like that. They co-regulate, most of them. They need you to also make them feel good. They can't be good if you're not good. We're not good. I'm not good if you're not okay. So it's that whole I'm not okay if you're not okay. And so in many ways, they need you to be able to calm down themselves. And they don't self-regulate as well. And so the people who are most susceptible to gaslighting are ones who need co-regulation, people who are anxious attachment, meaning they need, are you okay? Are you good? Do you need anything? Are you sure you're not okay? And versus the people who are more avoidant. And three, the people who are typically more insecure.
So do you think women get gaslit more than men?
Yes.
But women still gaslight women, right?
Of course.
But just men are more...
When you're talking relationships, that's my personal opinion, is because from my feedback, from the people that have read my book and the people who give me feedback on my book, yeah, it's vast majority are women. I'm not saying that's some empirical study on it, but what I will say is women are just as capable of gaslighting, and women can certainly gaslight women. And I'm saying this with the mindset of everybody gaslights, whether they know it or not, and they have in the past. And most likely they can think of a time in the past where they did without knowing it. But that would be my opinion, that most of the time men are the ones that do it to women.
I was reading some research here that says multiple studies on emotional abuse in heterosexual relationships show women report higher rates of gaslighting and coercive control than men. Men do report gaslighting too, but less frequently and usually in different forms. As it relates to workplace data, surveys from management and organizational psychology show women are more likely to have their competence questioned, their memory doubted, or their experience dismissed. Women in male-dominated fields report the highest rates of gaslighting, and women of color report even higher rates of being told their perception is wrong or that they're misinterpreting things.
Sounds like that tracks.
And also in medical settings, women are less likely to be believed about their symptoms. Women's pain is underestimated. Women get later diagnoses for multiple conditions like heart disease and autoimmune disorders, ADHD and autism. And the list goes on and on and on.
If I had to say who does more, I'm not trying to put some kind of like headline of men do it more than women. In my experience, it tends to be the guy. And what does that information show me? It shows me that sounds about right. I do think from the people that follow my content, listen to my content, because I stay very connected to my community of so many women say, I feel like I'm in this workplace and they are doubting my competence. They're doubting my ability to make decisions. I'm not being believed. I'm being put down. Whether it's not even their experience, it's just because of their gender. And those are real questions. Does that mean that that's gaslighting? Probably not all the time, but for me to say, that's a dumb complaint. That's just complaining. In many ways, when you start denying that reality, then you have the same problem.
Do you know what? I've hired thousands of people over the last decade, and I have to say, sometimes it's difficult to understand the plight of someone else when you haven't lived their experience, like you haven't been a woman or whatever.
It's impossible.
It's like very difficult. So you kind of just have to take them for their word sometimes if you've not lived it yourself.
Right.
Or you can look at data or whatever else. And I do have to say that I have experienced male executives who were extremely dismissive of their female peers in a way that was 100% inconsistent as it relates to genders. What I mean by that is I can think of several male executives over the years who I observed dismissing or diminishing or not giving the woman in the room the same credit, really for no other reason than she was a woman. And so it's a very real thing. And it's not every man, I have to say this, but there is a certain particular type of person who, for some reason, in my experience, would see a woman in the workplace or in the high sort of upper echelons of the professional environment as being less than them just because of her gender. So when I hear, what you're saying about women are predominantly coming to you talking about these issues of gaslighting, it does kind of track with what I've seen.
I'll tell you this, I've never had a man come to me in all this time that I've been, from my book to my content, this number of years, ever say, I think I'm being gaslit. It has always been the woman.
Never. What about the conversation around dealing with narcissists? Because this feels like it's kind of one and the same. The words are used in the same sort of vernacular, but
yeah.
Do you have men coming to you saying that I think my partner's a narcissist?
Yes.
You do?
Yeah, that I do have. Yeah, it's always they're married to one or just got out of a relationship with one, but it's never them.
And what do you say to someone who is dealing with a narcissist, who is dealing with someone who repeatedly gaslights them? Let's say it's in the context of work.
Yeah.
What are they meant to do? Quit their job?
Well, that is an option, so let's not rule that out.
Okay.
If it's worth it to you, because that's the question of what's your purpose here, and this is where you're going to be forever. Then there's some things we need to put in place. But what are you to do? You are to limit the interaction, like limit the exposure, talk less, neutral statements.
Being a mercenary, though,
So if you can, many ways you can, just limit the amount of physicality of I don't have to see you, I don't have to communicate with you. I know you work 3 doors down,
Feel like
but I don't
cooking.
have to be your best friend, and you certainly don't have to be mine. 2 is understanding the game that you're in. It's a game for narcissists of praise or provoke, meaning if I am not showering you with praise, then the narcissist will turn to provoke in order to create an argument for the same effect. They delight in frustration just as much as they delight in your praise, because they get the same type of control. I've seen so many expert witnesses in my field that are what I would term are narcissists. They can never possibly be wrong. They don't do empathy. And again, this is me with the understanding of, hey, we all have narcissistic tendencies. We all have narcissistic traits. And narcissism is a diagnosable condition that you can have. I think more people would qualify more than they think. But how do you handle it day to day is knowing what kind of game you're in. And it's a game you're just not going to play. I know I don't have to say anything to that person. 2, I'm going to limit my distance to them. And 3, I'm going to use neutral statements. I'm going to use neutral statements like, that's good to know. Thanks for sharing. Noted. Like things that they can't grab onto and continue to have in a conversation.
When you think of like the hallmarks of a really, really one of these types of people, what are the characteristics that I should be looking out for if I'm dealing with one such person who is going to try and manipulate me, is going to try and gaslight me? What do they do?
They can never be happy for anybody but themselves. They can't be happy for you. They can't be happy for other people. These are the type that if you were to say, hey, did you see that Stephen just got this award? Isn't that so great? He's just nominated for whatever. And they go, I mean, I guess that's fine. You know, when I did this, and they start talking about themselves. They can never be happy for somebody else. They can't be happy for you. They have to find some way to turn the conversation of why the world is so hard and so pitiful for them. That the world was against them and they couldn't get it, but they were just as deserving. I mean, I guess that's fine. I mean, you know, I do this, but nobody listens. Nobody really cares. They find that they have a very victim mentality. So 2 is a victim mentality. Everything happens to them in some way. And 3, they can't feel for other people. They don't do emotion. It's always about the perception of what others would think. They're very, very sensitive to how others might portray them. So they're going to give you a different view than they give other people. And so the couple might be terrible, but for a narcissist, they're going to put on a face that the relationship is perfect to everybody else. And everybody goes, you must be so blessed to be married to that person. And you're going, you kidding me? They're fooling everybody. And it's a very helpless position.
Have you ever had a narcissist try and prey on you?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in the legal field, man. Expert witnesses have opinions to them that are unquestionable. You can't, this is their opinion and nobody else could ever argue with it. When I have another expert who says just the opposite. So a lot of the times they are very condescending. You know, that's fine. And they have their opinion and this is all there is. And how dumb of you to ever question me. And usually what gives it away is if I feel like this is somebody that, okay, they can't be reasonable. They're never going to give an inch on what's reasonable. I will ask this. I'll say, this is typically in a deposition. I'll say, and you think the jury's going to like that? Mm-hmm. Or you think other people are going to agree with you? And all of a sudden they kind of change in an instant to be able to match what the jury is going to think. So if I were to say, and you think that's okay, and you think others are going to find that okay, and you think that the jury, when they hear this, they're all going to agree with this very hard line opinion. I've seen it every time where it's only when I reference other people, the presentation of themselves to other people, that they kind of put on a show.
Why?
Because they know that the perception of the crowd is everything. They need everybody to like them, to fawn over them. They want their idea to be the best. And so they will manipulate the situation to be the chameleon, to make sure that everybody loves them, at least in their mind. It's not a reasonable thought. And so they will typically change their opinion to sound more palatable, even though they could have admitted to that, 2 hours into the deposition.
do they tend to talk more or less than the average person in the room?
Much more.
Is there a thin line between just being insecure and being a narcissist? Because one of the things I was thinking about is you said earlier that they tend to bring everything back to themselves. And I was thinking about all the people that I know that if we were having a conversation about your book doing really, really well, the first response to that would be their mention of their own book. Like they would immediately bring it straight back to something about them. And I was wondering, some of those people I just have in the category of just being a little bit insecure, and that they just, they're in a search for validation. So I'm wondering where you think the line might be between sort of narcissistic behavior and just like extremely insecure. Maybe there's not a line. Maybe extreme insecurity is narcissism.
Both can be true. I'd say that not all insecure people are narcissists, but all narcissists are insecure. I would say that if I had to give some kind of line, it would be the interest for growth. Insecure people.
Opa. I think it's time to cook. Yeah, this game is lost.